Well, last week we started a series going through the book of Philippians together. We learned that Philippians is a letter that Paul wrote to the church in Philippi. During those first 11 verses that we covered last week, we learned that Paul wrote this letter primarily to thank the people at the church in Philippi for their support and their partnership in spreading the good news of the gospel. Jesus offers hope, salvation, and new life. This is the good news. This is the message that Paul and his partners in the mission were sharing. We also are partners in spreading that same good news. Together, we're on that same mission. The same mission that Paul and the Philippians were on, to share the hope that's found only in Jesus. And Paul prayed an incredible prayer for his partners in Philippi. If you remember it last week, it was from Philippians chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. And we sent home this little slip of paper with everyone who was here, with this verse on it, and asked you to put it somewhere where you would remember to pray this prayer for each other, that we as a church would be praying this for each other daily, weekly, throughout the summer. And we asked the question, what would happen? What will happen if we pray this prayer for one another like Paul prayed for the Philippians? Let me read it to you one more time to remind you. And I hope that at least some of you have started praying this prayer. And if you haven't yet, there's still plenty of time to join in. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in knowledge and understanding. For I want you to understand what really matters, so that you may live pure and blameless lives until the day of Christ's return. May you always be filled with the fruit of your salvation, the righteous character produced in your life by Jesus Christ. For this will bring much glory and praise to God. And we talked about the fact that this fruit they're talking about here, the fruit of the Spirit, can be found in Galatians 5, verses 21 and 22. If you did not get the opportunity to take one of these home, or if you lost one, we have extra copies at the welcome desk in the lobby, and we would love for you to take one of these home with you today and continue praying for each other, that our love would overflow more and more, and that God's character, the fruit of the Spirit, would show up in our lives, and that there would be much glory and praise to God. So I hope you'll continue to join me in that prayer this summer. We also learned that Paul was in prison somewhere in Rome at the time that he wrote this letter. He had been imprisoned for preaching the gospel, and he was awaiting trial under house arrest. Now, it's possible that Paul had been in this prison for a couple of years waiting for his trial. If Paul was exonerated, he would be set free. But if he were to be found guilty, he would be executed. So Paul was waiting for possible execution. We need to keep these circumstances in our minds as we read what he wrote to the Philippians. How is it that Paul was able to have such joy, even in prison, and possibly even facing execution? How is it that Paul is able to have this kind of positive attitude and being excited about sharing the hope in Jesus, even in prison, even possibly facing execution? Well, today, as we read the next section of Paul's letter, we'll discover that one of the main reasons Paul was able to be full of this joy, even though he was in a difficult and dangerous situation, we'll see what some of that reason is as we read today. We'll be reading again from chapter 1. We'll be in verses 12 to 26. So please grab your Bibles, or grab a Bible from the seat back in front of you, or if you have your phone or a tablet and you'd like to follow along on the Bible app, that's great too. Just a side note, if you're not in the habit of bringing your Bible with you to church, as we work our way through Philippians this summer, this is a great time to get into the habit of bringing your Bible with you. And if you don't have a Bible but you would like one, please come talk to me and we'll see what we can do about getting you a Bible. Or if you'd like to learn how to use a Bible app on your phone or on a tablet, talk to me after the service this morning. I'd be happy to show you how to do that. So let's go on. We're reading in chapter 1 in Philippians. I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation, so it might not exactly match whatever translation you're reading from, but it'll be close and you'll get the idea. All right, starting at verse 12. And I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped to spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Jesus Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. Let's pause right there for just a moment. Paul is saying that everything that has happened to him or is happening to him has helped to spread the good news. Remember, Paul was in prison, facing possible execution. How could the good news continue to be spread if he was locked up, if he is restricted, if he is unable to travel and preach the word? How can he continue his message? How can the mission go on? And if Paul is executed, what's going to happen to the mission? And you remember what we said prison was like. At this point, while he waited for his trial, Paul would have been under house arrest. And you remember we talked last week about how these prisons were often not like the prisons we have here in America, but they were rented space in houses, or rented houses totally, or rented other spaces in some home or other location. Paul would have been chained or handcuffed, so to speak, to one of the Roman guards, and so that he would not be able to leave. And other guards would likely be on and around the premises, but visitors were allowed to freely come and go. So Paul's conversations with these visitors were not restricted, and Paul was clearly allowed also to correspond or send letters and notes and messages very freely. So this gave Paul tremendous latitude in continuing to get the message and his mission out. So an interesting phenomenon was taking place here. Paul had a captive audience. Paul was the captive, but he also had a captive audience. The Roman guard, the other people who lived in that home, wherever it was that he was being held, the servants who were employed in that house where he was being held. Now, we don't know for sure. It doesn't say if Paul had any direct conversations with those other people on the periphery, but we do know that he had conversations with the people that visited with him, people like Timothy and Epaphroditus. And we know that Paul likely dictated his letters. He talks about dictating letters. It's speculated that Paul maybe was losing his eyesight, that he had vision trouble. And so, there is a famous quote by Paul that says, "See with what large letters I write." He had to write with very large letters, potentially because he couldn't see very well small letters. And so, consequently, he dictated a lot of his letters. So everything he was saying and writing, not just to the Philippians, but to anyone else he was corresponding with, everybody in that house heard it all. The message was getting to a whole new group of people, even if this was not the intended result. Paul was shooting for a different audience, and yet God was using it to reach this audience. It kind of reminds me of being at the hairdresser. Not that I think of going to the hairdresser as like But because I really like getting my hair cut, it's just so relaxing to sit back in that chair and have somebody else wash your hair and massage your scalp and your neck and condition your hair and cut it and blow it dry. It's really a luxury. But while I'm there, I have a captive audience. Kind of like Paul did. When I'm sitting in the chair, I'm not going anywhere, neither are the other people in the room, and I'm having a conversation with my hairdresser. Now, my hairdresser knows that I'm a Christ follower. She also knows that I'm a pastor. And so she feels comfortable asking me questions, faith questions, God questions, Bible questions. She usually has a list of them ready to fire at me when I come in. And so we talk about God, and we talk about faith, and we talk about, the Bible and all of these things. And I do my best to answer her questions, and I do my best to point her to the appropriate scriptures that will answer her questions. Every time I get my hair cut, she's wondering out loud about spiritual things, and we talk about it. So that gives me permission to have these kinds of conversations. It gives me permission to talk about the good news in a public place. But what I've noticed is she's not the only one who's listening during our conversation. Other hairdressers, other customers, anyone else who's working in the shop, everyone within earshot is listening to our conversation. I've watched their eyes. I've seen them. I know they're paying attention. I have a captive audience. The message of the gospel is getting out in a very unexpected way. I never expected this when I started going to a new salon or a new hairdresser. Paul was experiencing a phenomenon kind of like this. The difference is that I'm free to go, Paul wasn't. I'm being pampered, Paul wasn't. And Paul was potentially facing execution. I'm not. Although maybe some people would like to shoot me sometimes when they see what I do with my hair. Paul was sharing good news in a very different circumstance. How do we share the good news when we're in difficult circumstances like Paul was? How do we share the hope of Jesus when we're in the middle of really hard times? Let me share with you the story of a friend of mine. This is Carol's story. Carol is a friend of mine who was recently diagnosed with esophageal cancer. In the last several months, she has endured chemotherapy and radiation, among other things. And just a few days ago, she had a major surgery. The surgeons removed the tumor, along with half of her stomach and almost all of her esophagus. She's right now on a feeding tube. And she will have a long, slow recovery process with reconstruction. And even if the reconstruction is successful, she will have a permanent change in how and what she can eat for the rest of her life. Cancer is her prison. But she is finding that it is also her platform to share the gospel. The cancer has changed her and caused her to reflect on what is really important in life. And in a recent post, she shared some of these things. Listen to what she said. It seems like my cancer, as rough as it has been, and a very long journey, has also been an awakening for what is important to me. I am very grateful that I have received this cancer, because it has set me on a higher platform of my purpose in life. This cancer has brought me on the fast road to releasing my fears and to understanding spiritually what is important. I have come to realize that God will get me through this and use this journey for His purpose and to help me define my earthly purpose. This cancer has been a blessing in disguise. I have felt His presence pulling my heart and my mind closer to Him. If my cancer was a way to get closer to God and realize His presence deeper, I am very much at peace with that. Wow. That's profound. That's amazing. Because of this cancer, Carol has become bold in sharing her faith. People around her, doctors, nurses, family, even strangers, have been inspired by her courage and her attitude. And they have all heard the reason that she is able to be joyful in the midst of this very difficult, very painful, and life-threatening journey. The reason is Jesus. Cancer is her prison. Jesus is her liberator. The good news is getting out in spite of, or maybe because of, this disease that has her in chains. Carol also reflected on the fact that we all have cancers in our lives. We all have our own prisons, of course. What is your prison? What difficult circumstances are you facing that you cannot escape? That you didn't choose for yourself, or you would never choose for yourself? What's God teaching you through your prison? How is God using what He is teaching you, not only to give you hope, but to give hope to others? How might God use your hard times to advance the gospel in spite of or because of what you are going through? Just like Paul learned, Carol is learning that everything has happened to her has helped to spread the good news. We all have a prison story. I have a prison story. For a time, my prison was betrayal, abandonment, and divorce. It was something I didn't expect, it was something I didn't want, and it was something I couldn't escape. And when I was deep in the middle of it all, well-meaning people kept telling me, you're going to have such a great testimony. God is really going to use your story to help a lot of people. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear that. I was suffering. I was having a hard time. I knew that I was called to serve the Lord and I was committed to doing it, but not like this. This isn't what I had in mind when I told God I would answer His call. I said yes. I didn't know when I said yes that I would be counseling others who were suffering like I was suffering. Women whose husbands had been unfaithful to them. Women who had been betrayed and abandoned. Women who felt like their lives were over, like there was nothing left. Who felt they had no value. Women like me. The last thing I had in mind when I told God I wanted to be His servant, His slave. Remember Paul called himself a slave to Jesus Christ, a doula, ministry priesthood. The last thing I imagined when I told God I wanted to be His doula was this. I wonder if Paul felt that way at first when he was put in prison. This isn't what my prison had me in chains. But when I surrendered my agenda, my will, my wants, my desires to God, God did use my prison to minister to others. God began bringing me, and He still brings me, people who need to talk to someone who has been through what they're going through. God began bringing people to me who were suffering, not only the same way I was suffering, but suffering in other ways as well. And God gave me joy in the midst of a really hard time. And it was, what's really amazing, what amazes me constantly is that God is able to use the worst thing that ever happened in my life to bring hope to someone else. Because of the prison I was in, the message of hope in Jesus was getting out. It was being spread. So let me ask you, what is your prison? And are you willing to let God use your circumstances to spread the good news? Paul believed that the mission, the gospel, far outweighed his own circumstances and his own difficulties. Carol believes it. I believe it. I hope you believe it too. Let's continue at verse 15 if you're following along. Jump down to verse 15. It's true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, for they know I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives as they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my chains more painful to me. But that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. So I rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice, for I know that as you pray for me, and the Spirit of Jesus Christ helps me, this will lead to my deliverance. So apparently there were those who were going around preaching the gospel, the true gospel, the message of Jesus Christ, but they weren't preaching it so that people would find hope in Jesus and be saved. They were preaching it so that Paul would maybe get in more trouble, that it would be more painful and more difficult for Paul. Or maybe because they were competing against Paul, and now that he's in prison, they think the fame and the popularity will come to them. They didn't have pure motives. But Paul says that doesn't really matter. Paul says that whatever their motives were, people were still hearing the truth about Jesus Christ. These preachers had hoped to stir up trouble for Paul, but their actions had the opposite effect. The gospel message was getting out. What the preachers did for their own benefit, God used for the good. Kind of reminds me of what Joseph said of what happened to him in his life in Exodus chapter 50. You remember his brothers had thrown him into a well and then sold him into slavery, and he was then falsely imprisoned, and he just went through all kinds of hard things in his life. And when he was reunited with his brothers, he told his brothers, what you intended to harm me, God intended for good. And Paul is saying the same thing here. What these preachers intended to harm Paul, or for their own selfish gain, God intended for good, and was using to spread the gospel. Let's continue at verse 20. Paul says, for I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ, as I have been in the past, and I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ, whether I live or die. For me, living means living for Christ, and dying is even better. Some of you may be more familiar with the way this verse is phrased in the NIV, the New International Version. Listen to the way it's phrased there. To live is Christ, to die is gain. So for Paul, whether he lived or died, either his life or his death would bring honor to Christ and glory to God. And he was okay with it either way. If he lived, he would be able to continue the work of the gospel, to continue with the mission, and bring great fruit to the kingdom of God, meaning more people forgiven and saved. But if he died, at night he would go be with Jesus. And that was even better. Verse 22, he says, but if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Christ. So I really don't know which is better. It's true. He says, I'm torn between two desires. I long to go be with Christ, which is far better for me. Okay, you get it? He recognizes being with Christ would be what's better for him personally. This is for me. Verse 24, but for your sake, it is better for me that I continue to live. So this is a selfless choice to continue to live for the sake of others, even if he'd rather be with Jesus for his own self. Verse 25, he says, knowing this, I am convinced that I will remain alive, so that I can continue to help all of you grow and experience the joy of your faith. And when I come to you again, you will have even more reason to take pride in Christ Jesus because of what he is doing through me. So let me ask you again, what is your prison? Do you find yourself at times wishing you could just go be with Jesus? But maybe Jesus has you here for a while longer for some very good reasons, so that other people can hear the message through your life, so that many can come to be saved and find the hope that is only found in Jesus. Paul never said that being in prison was a good thing. The hard times we face in life are not a good thing. Cancer is not a good thing. But Paul was willing to endure these not so good things for the sake of the gospel. Carol is willing to endure for the sake of the gospel. What are you willing to endure for the sake of the gospel? Paul recognized that God was using his situation to advance the cause of Christ. How might God be right at this very moment using your situation to advance the cause of Christ? God can use your prison to reach people in your life with the hope that we can only find in Jesus. Look back to verse 14 if you're following along with us. Take a look at 14 again. In verse 14, Paul says that because of his imprisonment, because of his example, most of the believers there had gained confidence and were boldly speaking God's message without fear. So how we face our prisons, how we face our cancers, how we face our hard times matters. Will we wallow in self-pity? Or maybe shake our fist at God in anger and say, why, God? Because of what we're suffering? Or will we see our hard times as an opportunity